并不是一场简单的战争，它将会是一个世纪战争的开始。
Now, there could be another explanation, and that is the existence of a democratic Taiwan is actually more valuable to the Chinese Communist government. By maintaining, by surviving, a democratic Taiwan helps the Chinese Communist Party to justify its continued dictatorship and its pursuit of global military power.
所以民主台湾的存在是不是从另一方面来讲，一个民主台湾的存在是不是对中国来说其实是有价值的？是它作为就是专制政府存在的一种理由，还有包括它在对于全世界要进行控制的一个原因。
Next slide, please. Okay, what I'd like to do here in part one is talk about a potential Chinese invasion of Taiwan.
所以第一部分我要讲的是一种有可能性对台湾进行中国政府对台湾进行攻击的一种可能性。
Many of us who study and write about China's military are coming to something of a consensus that by the mid-2020s, the People's Liberation Army may actually be ready to invade Taiwan.
我们就是研究中国军事的这些专家达成的一个共识，就是在2020年，中国是在军事方面可以做好入侵台湾的准备。
By the mid-2020s, the PLA will be well into a restructuring and a reform of doctrine and operations started in 2015. It will also have integrated a fourth generation level of technology, and as a consequence, the temptation for the Communist Party leadership to actually invade Taiwan will be great.
所以中国人民解放军从2015年开始的重建，在2020年将会达到可以入侵台湾的这个水平，然后包括在技术方面。
But there are two caveats or two exceptions that have to be mentioned. The first caveat is that for a successful invasion of Taiwan, the PLA will require overwhelming superiority, near complete surprise, concealment of its preparations, very rapid coordination, excellent weather, and operations that successfully capture all necessary ports and airfield, and not to mention the best of luck.
当然，其实要有两点。第一点就是说，要成功的入侵台湾的话，中国人民解放军必须当时是有非常的优越性在军事方面，然后他的准备是要非常的保密，然后他要有很快的行动力，然后非常好的协调，还有非常好的天气。然后还有非常好的运气，还有就是对于各个港口和军事基地的占领。
The difficulties that China will face invading Taiwan were very well described in a book 2 years ago by a friend of mine named Ian Easton.
中国要入侵台湾的困难的地方。我的一位同事叫 Ian Easton， 他那本书里写得非常详细。
Now, caveat number 1 is very important, but here is caveat number 2, and that is caveat number 1 becomes much less necessary if China's missile and nuclear weapon assistance to North Korea enables a military nuclear crisis that distracts or ties down the United States?
第二点。
The first caveat is much less important if.
OK， 所以第二点要比第一点更加重要。第二点就是，如果中国对北韩在核武器上的帮助，将会产生与美国之间的核武器的危机。
See, for almost 20 years, China has been helping North Korea to obtain missile technology, like this very sophisticated truck carrying this North Korean intercontinental ballistic missile. That truck is made in China.
所以中国在20年对于北韩导弹发展起到了很大的帮助。他刚才指的那张图片的那个车就是在中国制造的。
Because of the Chinese truck, the North Koreans have a much greater capability to launch a nuclear missile strike against the United States. And that is because of China's assistance.
正因为有了中国的帮助，所以北韩更有可能成功的对美国发射核导弹。
And just so that we're all clear, Washington, D.C. would be a major target for that missile and that warhead. Where you live will be a target.
所以华盛顿特区就是我们现在在的这个地方将会成为如果北韩对美国发起导弹的核导弹的话，我们将会是首先的受到影响的地方。
Excellent. Now, one way China would like to get to Taiwan is to build a large tunnel from Fujian province to Taiwan. These are plans that China has been working on for a very long time, but of course has not yet started to build a tunnel, and of course would need a very cooperative government in Taipei in order to build such a tunnel.
所以中国的战略之一就是从福建省建一条隧道到台湾，但是中国目前还没有开始建这条隧道。然后他如果要建这条隧道的话，当然需要台湾政府的合作。
But China has already constructed thousands of kilometers of tunnels to hide its strategic missiles. So,
但是中国已经建了数千英里的隧道，用来就是藏它的那个导弹。
So, in theory, China could build this tunnel. It is a possibility.
所以理论上来说，中国是完全可以造这样一条隧道的。
Excellent. But before this tunnel, China is going to utilize aircraft and ships to get its troops to Taiwan. And it has been working on these means in a very serious manner.
但是除了建隧道之外，中国还会想要把那个船，包括飞机到台湾。
Some Chinese reports indicate that the People's Liberation Army would like 400 of these Y-20 transports that are about the same size as the American C-17. But China would also like to build 100-ton plus capacity airlift aircraft like this Ukrainian aircraft, and is getting help from the Ukraine to build such an aircraft.
所以中国人民解放军想要达到的就是有400架，它第一个指就是左边上面那个图，400架这样叫 Y-20的这样的军舰。然后除了这个之外，飞机运输机。
The big problem for China today is in trying to develop its own large high-bypass turbofan engines, but is investing a great deal of resources in trying to solve this problem.
然后中国想要，就是他刚才指的另一张图，中国想这个是乌克兰的一架飞机，然后乌克兰也在帮中国建这样子的飞机。
In addition, People's Liberation Army has about 1,000 large helicopters that it can use to carry troops to Taiwan, but it eventually wants a fleet of 3,000 helicopters.
中国目前是有1000架这样的直升机，但是他想要达到的目标是3000架。
Next slide. However, if the People's Liberation Army uses civilian airliners and is able to capture all of the large airfields in Taiwan, China could move about 5.3 million people to Taiwan in a month.
但是如果中国用民运军机，并且对台湾的机场都有控制的话，它可以在1个月之内运送530万个人到台湾。
The important number on Taiwan is there are about 8.6 million households, 8.6 million families. In Xinjiang, the Chinese government is putting a bureaucrat and a Chinese official in each household. So far, China has sent 1 million Han Chinese to live with the families, the Uyghur families in Xinjiang. So, in about a little over a month and a half, China could send enough Han Chinese to Taiwan to have one person in every household in Taiwan.
台湾的家庭有860，然后目前中国在新疆地区是每一个家庭都送了1名汉族中国的官员，然后新疆是有100，现在已经送到100个家庭里有这样子的汉族的官员，所以如果台湾要在1个月之内做同样的事情到台湾去的话，那他需要送大约800万中国人，这样子的话，每一户台湾家里面就有一个汉族的中国人。
So if China can send all these millions of people to Taiwan, and the people on Taiwan don't fight back, then it is possible to consider that China will conquer Taiwan.
如果中国在1个半月之内能够送800万人力到台湾的话，那如果有这样的假设的话，那中国是可以占领台湾，以这种方式。
Now, with formal naval sea lift, the PLA can only send about 40,000 troops or 800 tanks to Taiwan.
如果使用航空母舰的话，中国军队可以送大约4万个部队到台湾。
That's a very small number. However, we'll see at the next slide. Next slide. The People's Liberation Army will also use many, many more civilian ships, roll-on, roll-off ferries, roll-on, roll-off barges. There is an estimate from Taiwanese military sources, I was told this several years ago, that using civilian ships, China could send 80,000 to 120,000 troops to Taiwan.
除了用军事的海军运送的话，中国还会用还可以用民运的这些船，运送到台湾，大约是8万到12万。
In 2009, the World Bank produced a report by Chinese experts that tells us China has over 100,000 self-propelled barges on inland waterways like this one. So with over 100,000 barges, China has the option of trying to invade Taiwan multiple times. It can try once and maybe fail. Then it can try it again very quickly.
据2009年世界银行的一个报道，然后这个报道是有中国的专家一起合作的。Wait, can you go back?
Sorry.
那个报告就是中国大约有10.4万，我不知道这个叫什么。螺船。
驳船。转驳船。
驳船 ，OK。用这个驳船的话，中国可以先试一下，就是运送军队到台湾。
Now, here are some of the specialized equipment that the People's Liberation Army is developing to assist in invasion. Specialized infantry fighting vehicles, specialized communication, specialized beach breaching vehicles, anti-mine rockets, and even putting down new surfaces to create roads over